Welcome back, everyone, as we wish a mazel tov to Abi Spry and his family on another mazel tov is Einiklach. And Abi, it should keep coming, Mirz Hashem. Also, we have almost finished the plan to reprint Power Benching, as Abi has agreed to half of the dedication, and Eddie Chazan took another quarter, so we need another quarter dedication. That's another $12.50 to kick off Power Benching's next publication. And remember, you get a mention in the front of the Sefer, so that's a very nice thing. We are starting now 4 lines from the top of Daf Samachei Amid Aleph, 4 lines from the top of Daf Samachei Amid Aleph. Gufa, Amar Rav, if you remember, Rav said, why does it say Geneva and Chaim? It's coming to tell us that you pay Keren Ke'en Shegonav. That if Eddie steals an animal, he has to pay the principal the way it is at the time of the theft. Tashlume kefil v'tashlume arba v'chamisha, but the payment of the double, the second payment, or in the case of a seh 4 times, or in the case of a shar 5 times, kishas hamad b'din, the value of what the animal is at the time when it's assessed in court. So my time of the Rav, what's the reason of Rav? Like we explained, the reason of Rav is Amakra, it says in the pasuk Geneva v'chayim, Maika Amar Rachmana Chaim beGeneva. Why does it say Chaim by Geneva? Achya lekeren ke'en sheganav, that you bring back the principal to the value it was at the time of the theft. So Rav Sheshes has a problem with this, and we're going to now see that we're going to really narrow down where Rav says that we do this. Amar Rav Sheshes, Amina, I would think, Kinayim v'shochiv Rav Amalah Shmaitza. The Rav said when he was dozing. Now, this it means as follows. There were times that busy people like Rav, who was from the G'dayli Peiskei Hadar, the Gadol Hadar, there were times that he could have been up the whole night with community affairs or analyzing the Shaila, and during the day he would need to doze a little bit, but even while he was dozing, he would sit and have an ear to what the sages were saying. And he said it would seem to be that Rav said this when he was not fully awake. Why? The Tanya, because it says in the Brisa, Chusha v'hishmina, if the animal was emaciated and it became fat, Mishalim tashlume kefil v'tashlume arba v'chamisha, you pay the double portion and the 4 and 5, ke'en sheganav. But you just said that we pay the kefil and the tashlumi arba v'chamisha kishas hamad b'din, the way it was at the time it's assessed in court. Says the Gemara, no, there it doesn't make sense that Eddie should have to pay double or 4 or 5 for what he fattened the animal. He fattened the animal with his own money. Imre mishum da amale anap patimna, I fattened it v'at shoklas, and you want to take 4 times as much for what I did afterwards? That doesn't make sense. So we're going to have to see. So where did Rav say that you pay the kefil and the dollar the hay kishas hamad b'din? We'll talk about that. Toshma. But first, the Gemara says another case. Shmeina ve'echisha. If the animal was fattened and then got emaciated, Mishalim tashlume kefil v'tashlume arba chamisha ke'en shegana. You pay the kefil and the tashlume arba chamisha the way it was at the time that he stole it. and not at the time of Hamad B'Din. But why not? Says the Gemara, you know why not? Because if he emaciated it, that's an extension of his theft. And of course he has to pay for the way it was formerly, because he caused it to be emaciated. Of course, you pay if you slaughter it. So what if you only slaughtered it partially, meaning that you caused it to be emaciated because you overworked it? So because you overworked it, that's part of your theft. So of course you have to be responsible for the fact that you overworked it and restore even the double portion and the 4 or 5 to the way it was when it was stolen. Kikama Rav, when does Rav say that you pay the keren the way it was when you stole it, but you pay the kefil or the dal v'hei the way it was at the time in court? That's b'yukra v'zulu hudekamer. That's where it went up in value or went down in value. That means that the prices, the market, went up in value or down in value. So the Gemara says, well, even in this, we're going to have to narrow it down. Hey, Chidami, what's the case? If initially it was worth a zuz at the time that he stole it, and at the end it's worth 4 zuz, so he has to pay Karen Kain Shaganav. He has to pay the principal. Like when he stole it, he only has to give a zuz. Lema pligi de Rava de Rabba. Is Rav going to argue on the case of a din of Rabba? The Amar Rava, Hayman de Gozel Chavita de Chamra Mechavre. If Eddie stole a barrel of wine from Aaron, May Korashav Yezuza, initially when he stole it, Rosh Chodesh Teves, it was worth a zuz. Ule B'Saif, when he got to court, Shav Yadalet, Zuzeh. So the din is Tavra Oishasya, if he broke it or he drank it, so then Mishalim Dalet, then he pays 4. Because then you don't go back to the time of when he stole it, because he continued stealing it by breaking it or drinking it. But if it broke itself while it was by him, then Mishalim Zunza. Says the Gemara, you're right. In that case, Rav would agree. Rav is talking about the other way around. Imre Kikam Rav going to make Korash Shav Yadalid. Initially it was worth 4, Ulubasayf Shav Yazuza. And at the end it was worth a zuz. So Karen Kain Shagana. He pays the principal payment, he pays 4. Tashlume Kefil v'Tashlume Arba v'Chamish, he calculates according to its value now in court of 1. Kishas Hamad B'Din. So he pays the original principal, he pays 4. The Kefil, he pays 1. The Dal V'Hei, he pays 1, the way it was in the time that it was assessed in court. So now, Tani Rav Chanina l'siyuei l'Rav. Rav Chanina brings a proof to Rav. Now I want to, as we welcome in Naftali Javelin for our 32nd Zoomer of the evening, also I see a message here on Facebook. Richard, I'm sorry, I did not see you waiting in the waiting room. Of course, if I saw you, I would not keep you waiting, but I ask you to try again, and of course I'll let you in. I'll keep an eye out. I might have been distracted by Mark and his shenanigans, but Richard, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled to see you come in. Now, if you remember, in the event that here he is, here comes Richard, and it's been a while since we've had 30. Welcome, Richard, it's great to have you. And Mark didn't distract me. He tried, but he didn't distract me. And by the way, Rabbi said, catch a glimpse of it. This is Richard Rosenzweig in the flesh before he blacks out. It is him, the one and only Richard Rosenzweig, Esquire. Says the Gemara. So where I give Mark my Kaishel Eliyahu. So if he says it was stolen and he swears, so the din is if he confesses and he comes to be sheepishly and gives me the kais, so there the din is he has to pay the principal, he has to add a fifth, and he has to bring a carbon asham. If witnesses come and say that he stole it, then he has to pay kefil. What happens, however, if after the witnesses come and say he stole it, then Mark confesses? So there's going to be an opinion that then he has to pay kefil and an asham and a chaimish. So let's see it inside. Says the Gemara, Balabayas. The Balabayas tonight is Mark. Balabayas sheton tainis ganav b'pikad. He claims that my kaisa shalayo was stolen. V'nishba, he takes an oath. V'hoida, and then he confesses. Now, if he just confessed, so then he would pay a fifth extra and bring an asham. But then ubo edim, and then witnesses came. So im actually bo edim hoida, if he confessed before the witnesses come, so he said that once he confessed first, so moida b'knas, he doesn't pay kefil. So mishalim, then he only pays karen v'chaimish v'asham. Then he only pays the principal, the fifth, and he brings the asham for swearing falsely. However, so he's chayiv in kefil because the witnesses came first. So he's chayiv kefil. The shaila is, but now that he also confessed, is he chayiv to bring the asham, the carbon, and also the fifth? So
why should he confess?
What?
Why should he confess if he has to do that?
Well, somebody could say that they're false witnesses. But he went ahead and he confessed. He says, okay, jig's up, I confess. I know you can't see Mark doing it, but it happens to the best of us. That's what happens when you're not by a shir for a while. Things happen, here's Philippe. Wow, look at tonight, I'm telling you. We got to get Marshall. Where's Marshall? Look at Philippe. Philippe is here. He's the 34th Zoomer. I mean, Marshall is 16 from the promised land. I mean, it's Mark, you got to get Marshall on the phone. Tell him he would be 35. So anyway, and Shalom Fogel would be 36. Wow. Anyway, so the Gemara says over here, the imish shebo edim hoida, if after witnesses come, Mark confessed, mishalim tashlumei kefil, he pays the kefil, says this on the Yama that his fifth is superimposed. That's the wrong way of saying it. His fifth is absorbed in the kefil. He doesn't have to also pay a fifth. The fifth is absorbed in the kefil. The asham, he pays his kefil v'asham. V'chumshay oilaloi b'kveiloi. Now Rashi tells us that the only time the chaimish could be fulfilled with the kefil is if the kefil and the chaimish are the same amount. Now that sounds to be impossible, because the kefil is double of the principal, and the fifth is only a fifth of the principal. So the Gemara is going to talk about that. But that's the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov. The Chachamim say, no, you can't do that. B'roishai v'chamishisai, the only time that you pay a fifth is only b'roishai, the principal and the fifth. Maman amishtalim b'roish, only if you pay keren ma'isiv chaimish. Maman she'ei mishtalim b'roish, but if Mark has to pay kefil, then he doesn't have to give a chaimish. Ei ma'isiv chaimish. Reb Shimon ben Yochai says that not only is that true that Mark doesn't have to pay a fifth when he has to pay the kefil, but he also doesn't have to bring an oshim, a guilt offering, when he pays the kefil. Reb Shimon ben Yochai Aimer, ein chomesh v'oshim, there's no fifth, nor a guilt offering, mishtalim b'makom sheyesh kefil. Oh, but now let's get back to Reb Yaakov's opinion. Reb Yaakov's opinion is that Harrison Kletzel is here. So we do have 35 Zoomers already. Now that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Says the Gemara, Bruce, you see what happens when you come? It's unbelievable. Bruce, you have to come more often. Telling you, it's in the stars. Astrologers, just like they saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was put in the water and they stopped putting babies in the water. They see that Bruce is by the shear. So anyway, Rabbi Yaakov says that where Mark has to pay kefil and the fifth is equal to the kefil, he doesn't have to pay the fifth. How could the fifth be equal to the kefil? Ketani mias chumshay oiloi b'kveiloi, that the fifth is fulfilled with the kefil divrei Rabbi Yaakov. Hechidami, how could that be? Ilay mademei korashav yadalid. If initially the item was worth 4, ulabisayf shavya arba, and now it's worth 4. Chumshay oiloi b'kveiloi. How could the chaimish be the same thing as the kefil? Kfeil arba, the kefil isn't double. That means you have to pay another 4. While the chumsha zuzah. Now let me explain to you how one zuz is a fifth of 4. This is called a chaimish milavar. This is called an outside fifth. A chaimish milavar means you have to pay that when you add the amount to the principal, it's a fifth of the total. So when you add 1 to 4, 1 becomes a fifth of 5. So, but anyway, the chaimish over here is not the same as the kefil. Chaimish is 1, and kefil is 4. Elalav, the Gemara says we're going to prove Rab's idea. The meikara shavi arba. Initially it was worth 4. Ulabesayf shavi azuzah, and now it's worth a zuz. Now remember we said that the kefil you pay like shas hamad bedin, and kefil is b'shas hamad bedin. Shas hamad bedin is 1, and the chaimish is also 1. The kfeila zuzah, v'chumsha zuzah. So you see, alma keren, the principle is kain sheganav, is the way it was when you stole it. Tashlumei kefil, tashlumei arba v'chisha is kishas hamad bedin. It's the way it was at the time in court, and therefore both the kefil is 1, and the chaimish is 1. So Rabbi says, not really a proof. Rabbi has a different shot. Amar Rabbi la'olam d'meikar shavi arba v'ashtanami shavi arba. Originally it was 4, and now it's also 4. If originally it was 4, and now it's also 4, then how do you have it that the chaimish is worth the same as the kefil? The chaimish is 1 and the kefil is 4. Or the kakashal kfeila damit, the chumshay zuzah, the kefil is 4 and the chaimish is 1. You don't know Mark. Mark lied 4 times. He swore 4 times. And then v'hoida. V'atayra amr v'chamishisav, in the plural. So since he swore 4 times, he has to pay 4 fifths, which each one is a zuz, so then it will be equal to the kefil. So it's not a riot to Rav. Okay. Now let's get to the argument. One man Yama says that the fifth is absorbed in the kefil. One man Yama says that when you pay kefil, you don't pay a fifth, but you still pay an ashim. And one Maniyama says if you pay kefil, you don't pay a fifth and you don't pay the yashim. So what's the machlokes? So let's see it inside. Amamar v'chachamim aimrim b'roishai v'chamishisai maman amishtalim b'roish. If you pay only the keren, ma'aseh chaimish. Maman she'ein mishtalim b'roish. If you pay kefil, ein ma'aseh chaimish. But he seems to hold, but you do bring an asham. Aval asham ma'aseh. So the Gemara says, why? Ma'ash no chaimish d'loi mishalem. That if you pay kefil, you don't pay the fifth. Only if you pay the principal do you do the fifth. Asham nami lo misham. Then you shouldn't bring an asham either. So it seems to me the asham is also connected to Baraisha if you only pay the keren. But if you pay kefil, you shouldn't pay a guilt offering. Imri lach Rabbanan, so the Rabbanan say es paske kra. Since it says es ashamai, so the es ashamai interposes between that and Baraisha and the principal, so that you pay the guilt offering even if you don't just pay principal, even if you pay kefil. Reb Shimei Yochai, who says that you don't bring the asham, he holds v'es, the extra vav, arvei kra. It again connects it. It's a vav achibur. It's a connecting vav, and it connects it to Baraisha that only if you pay keren, but not if you pay kefil. Rabbanan say, look, if it was supposed to be connected, it shouldn't say S and it shouldn't say Vav. And then we would know it's connected. Then it would be connected. The fact that it says S, it's telling you it's not connected. Reb Shimon Yochai Amalach, Es lo yisagid lo kasaf. It had to say the S. Because you have to separate the fifth, which is a monetary payment, to an asham, which is given to God. Lafsuke be'mamen gavaya l'mamen hedya. And therefore, the S just gave cover to the Shechina. The Vav connects it back to Roshai. Hilkach asya Vav arekra, and tells you only when you pay just the principal, but if Mark had to pay kefil, he doesn't give the fifth, and he doesn't bring an asham. Now, it's pretty cool. It's not even an hour yet. We're really moving. Like Aaron said, it's good that it's easy Gemara. Right, Aaron? Now, let's get back to Eddie. We gave Eddie a little time off over here. But let's get back to Eddie. I shouldn't say time off for bad behavior. Why do you think Eddie is always running out of the country? What do you think? So, for that matter, he's always in a getaway car. Amar Rebbe Law, Ganav tle v'nasa ayil. If Eddie stole a sheep and it matured to be a ram, Egel v'nasa shar, he stole a calf and it became an ox. Oh, nasa shinoi biyadai. There is a change in his hand, and he's kained b'shinoi v'kanai. Then if he slaughters it or sells it, he's not chayiv dalan and a. So then tavach ha'macher shaloyu toveach shaloyu meicher. That's the psak of Rebbe Law. So that if Eddie stole a sheep and he kept it around in Dallas, where nobody knew who he was, they thought he was in Carolinas, and it became a ram, or a calf, and it became an ox, he acquired it, and then if he slaughtered it or sold it, he's not chayav for dalvei because he sold that which was his. So Eisvei Rab Chanina l'Rabbi Loi. So Rab Chanina asked Rabbi Loi, it says Ganav tlev v'nasa ayil. If he stole a sheep and it became a ram, Egav v'nasa shar. He stole a calf and it became an ox. Mishalem tashlumei kefil v'tashlumei arba chamisha. He has to pay the tashlumei kefil and the tashlumei arba chamisha. Ke'ein sheganav, like the way it was when he stole. But the bottom line is, if he sold Kedaita Kanya Mishinoi, then why should he have to pay? Shalahu Teveach, Shalahu Meicher. So Amallah, so he argued to him, Ve'alamai Shinui Loi Kani. He doesn't acquire with Shinui. Then Amai Mishalim Ke'en Shaganav, why does he pay the way it was when he stole it? La Shalim Kihashta. He should pay the way it is now. Amalei Kihashta Hainu Taima Deloi Mishalim. The reason why he doesn't pay the way it is now is Mishum da Amalei, because he says, why should I pay the way it is now? Turagan ve'mimcha? Did I steal an ox from you? Dichragan ve'mimcha? Did I steal a ram from you? I only stole a sheep. I only stole a calf. So Amalei, so he said to him, Rachmana nitzlon mehaidaita. May the merciful save us from such a svara. Because if you'll say that he says, did I steal an ox from you? Did I steal a ram from you? Then in that manner then, so therefore he should have been kainet b'shinoi, and he shouldn't pay dalal v'hei. Amalei adrabah rachmanan litzlan midati didach. Heaven should save us from the way you're thinking. So here we have a machloikis over here. The question is whether we say that he pays, but he pays, 1 second, let me see why this came out. Hey, these plugs come out, it's no good. We have a machloikis over here, whether we say that he doesn't pay because when it became an ox or a ram in Eddie's property, he acquired it, and therefore, once he acquired it, when he sold it or he slaughtered it, he wasn't anymore selling and slaughtering Aaron's item, but rather his own item. Or we say he does have to pay, but he pays the way it was at the time that he stole it, a sheep and a calf, and not an ox and a ram. Now, says the Gemara, but I don't understand. Even if he doesn't acquire it because of the physical transformation, he should acquire it because of the Shinei Hashem. It has a different name. He should acquire it with the change in the name. So the Gemara says there's no change in the name. A calf, even 1 day old, is already called a shar. And a sheep already 1 day old is already called a ram. Amarav shar ben Yuma kar shar. Ayil ben Yuma, a ram a day old, kari ayil. How do we know this? Shar ben Yuma kar shar. Dichsiv sharai kesef ay eis ki avaleit. An ox, a sheep, or a goat when it's born. So we see even when it's born, it's called a shar. Ayil ben Yuma kari ayil. Dichsiv elei tzayncha lo yachalti. I didn't eat the rams of your flock. Now, does that mean Elam hu d'le'achal kvasim achal? Does that mean to imply he didn't eat rams? But if they were young kvasim, he did eat? No. Allah Shema, know that Ayil ben Yuma, even a day old Ayil, is called an Ayil, Kari Ayil. Says the Gemara, Mikol Makam Kasha. It's shver on Rabbi Eloi, because now, why is it shver on Rabbi Eloi? We just answered it. 1 second. Okay, so the Maisa is Rabbi Eloi was attacked by a brisa that says if you steal a sheep and it becomes a ram, a calf, and it becomes a shar, you have to pay tashlumei kefil and tashlumei arba b'chamisha. So that brisa, that's a brisa. That brisa is not like Rabbi Law, because Rabbi Law says that when Eddie steals it and it matures and then he slaughters it or he sells it, he's not chayiv. So what does Eddie do? What does Rabbi Law do with this brisa? Kol makom kasha. Rabbi Law, the brisa is shver on Rabbi Law. Says the Gemara, well, the brisa is going according to Beis Shammai. Amar Rav Sheish is Hamani Beis Shammai, the Amar Shinoi b'mekaymai amedes. That even if there's a Shinoi, you don't acquire it. So this brisa that says that Eddie would be chayiv to pay is going according to Beis Shammai. Shinoi b'mekaymai amedes v'leikaning. The Tanya, where do we see that that's Beis Shammai's opinion? Nosan la be'esnana chitin. If Chatzkel gives Delilah as payment for her services wheat. Now we know that in Esnan Zaina, the wage to a woman of the night cannot be used on the Mizbeach. Esnan or Mechir Kelev cannot be used on the Mizbeach. But Chatzkel gave her wheat. V'osan soilus, and Delilah converted it to fine flour, which she now wants to bring as a mincha. Zeisim, he gave her as payment olives, v'osan shemen, and she converted it to oil. She wants to use it for a mincha. Anovim, he gave her for payment for her services grapes, v'osan yayin, and she converted it to wine, which she wants to use for nesachim. Tani chada aser, one says Delilah can't do it. It's still an esnan. The Tani chada mutter. Now who says mutter? Who says aser? Even though she did shinui, she did a change. Amar Rav Yosef Tani gurion the me'aspirik Beis Shammai oisrin. Beis Shammai says it's aser because shinui is not kaina. Or Beis Hillel matirin. My time in the Beis Shammai. What's the reason Beis Shammai? Dichsiv, in the pasuk of Esnan, it says, "Leisavi Esnan Zaino Mechir Kela Beis Hashem Lekecha Lechol Neder Ki Tavas Hashem Lekecha Gam Shneim." So Gam is a riboy. So my time in the Beis Shammai Dichsiv Gam LeRabbi Shineim, to include even if it's transformed. Or Beis Hillel says, it says, Haim v'lo shinuyayim, they, and not their change. Beis Shammai hahu haim v'lo deisayim. Who does? When it says haim, it means to say that if he gives the harlot a female animal, that female animal can't be brought on the mizbeach, but the offspring can. Beis Hillel tarte shamas mina. Beis Hillel says haim excludes both. Haim means only it itself. So haim v'lo shinuyayim, it and not if it's transformed. If it's grain and it becomes flour. If it's oil, olives, it becomes oil. If it's grapes and it becomes wine. And also haim v'lo the same. And also it and not its offspring. Okay, Rabbi say. We're going to stop here, and then we're going to do the Mishnah Yomi, so don't go anywhere.